What is up, you sick mother bluffers? I'm at Deuce's for some cash game action. I buy in for 300 bucks. Let's get right into it. In this one, we're playing a 5-2-2 bomb pot. 5 cards, 2 boards. Best hand on each board wins half the pot. If one player has the best hand on both boards, they scoop the entire pot. Got it? We all see a flop of 9, 5, 10, 2 spades on top, Queen, Jack, 7, rainbow on bottom. I'm in the small blind with King, Jack, Jack, 4 deuce. I've got a pair of jacks and a straight flush draw on top, and I flop middle set on bottom. I lead out for 25. Undergun pots it to 115, folds around to the button, who calls all in for 85. Looks like Undergun has 35 bucks behind. Might as well get it in now. I raise all in for 150 effective, and they make the call. We're going 3 ways to a run out, which comes a 7 on top, 8 of clubs on bottom. Not much changing for me. I do pick up a jack high flush draw on bottom. River comes a king on top, and the 10 of clubs on bottom. I end up with a pair of kings on top, and a jack high flush on bottom. Undergun shows 99863 for a 10 high straight on top and a queen high straight on bottom. Button shows king queen jack 10 deuce for a king high straight on top and top 2 pair on bottom. The button's king high straight is going to win on top, and my flush ends up being good on bottom. We chop. The very next shuffle, we play another 5-2-2 bomb pot. Top comes 8-5-5 2 hearts, bottom comes 6-7 queen rainbow. I'm in the small blind with jack 9 6-6-5. I flop trip 5s on top and a set of 6s on bottom. I lead for 30. The big blind, pretty tight player, raises to 90. It folds back to me. Looks like the big blind has 250 behind. I'm not loving the spot, but my hand is too strong to fold, so I make the call. Heads up to the turn, which comes a 7 on top, giving me the 9 high straight. Bottom comes a 3, which doesn't change anything. I check and fold to the big blind, who bets 100. At this point, I figure that I must be good on at least one board, so I decide to raise all in for 250 effective, and the big blind pretty quickly calls. The river comes a 9 on top, giving me a boat, 5s over 9s, and bottom comes another 7, giving me another boat, 6s over 7s. We're going to showdown, and my opponent shows king, queen, queen, 8-5 for a flop boat on top, which I luckily cracked on the river, and they rivered a bigger boat on bottom after flopping top set. Pretty crazy that we both ended up with boats on both boards. We chop. In this one, we're playing a Dramaha bomb pot. 5 cards, 1 board. Best hand on the board wins half the pot. Best 5 card combo in a player's hand wins the other half. If one player's got the best hands on the board and in their hand, they scoop the pot. Got it? The flop comes 9 ace queen with 2 spades. I'm under the gun with queen queen 9-3-3, so I flop middle set on the board, and I've got 2 pair, queens and 3s in my hand. Action checks to me and I bet 20. I get called by the hijack, cutoff, and button. 4 of us are headed to draw time. I throw away the 9, and in exchange I get a 3. Wow. The turn comes the 8 of diamonds. I have second set on the board, and I now have a full house, queens over 3s in my hand. I lead for 80. Hijack calls for their last 25. The cutoff calls, and the button calls. Still 4 ways to the river. I would love for the board to pair, but it comes to 4 of spades, so I end up making the second nut flush with queen 3 of spades. I go all in for 259. The cutoff and button fold, granting me the side pot, and I go heads up to showdown for the main pot, and the hijack shows king 10 of spades for the nut flush. Fuck! I was so close to scooping, but I have to settle for a chop. This is the player who almost scooped me in that 5-2-2 bomb pot earlier, so I guess we're even now. Here's another Dramaha bomb pot. The flop comes 5-10 4 2 spades, and I'm in the hijack with ace queen jack jack 6. I've got the nut flush draw on board and a pair of jacks in my hand. Action checks to me. I check for now, and action checks around. Going to draw time, I throw away the queen and the 6, holding onto my nut flush draw and pair of jacks. The turn comes the 6 of spades, and I draw the ace and queen of diamonds. I turn the nut flush draw on the board, and I improve to 2 pair down, aces and jacks. The small blind is going to lead for 15, under the gun calls. That's not going to cut it for me. I raise to 90. Small blind calls, but under the gun folds. We're going heads up to the river. Keep it clean, dealer. It's the king of diamonds, perfect. Small blind checks this time. I bet 100, and they pretty quickly make the call. With a boat in their hand, 7s full of 8s. Did not expect them to check a hand this strong. We're going to chop this one. Alright, in this one we're 4-handed, waiting for the 2 tables to merge. The button opens to 7. Action folds to me in the big blind, and I look down at pocket queens. I don't do this very often, but I decide to mix things up a little bit and just call. We go heads up to a flop of 6, 8, queen, 2 spades. I flop top set. I check and flow to my opponent, who continues for $5. I unfortunately cannot afford to slow play on this wet board. I raise to 20. I know my opponent is definitely not putting me on pocket queens, but it looks like they don't have much, as they pretty quickly make the fold. After a little bit, we finally move to the main table, and in my very first hand, there's a raise from the hijack to 8. The cutoff 3 bets to 16 before I look down at pocket 9s. I make the call. Action folds back to the hijack, who makes the call as well. We go 3 ways to the flop, which comes 8, 9, deuce, rainbow. I flop top set. Fuck yeah. Hijack checks. Cutoff continues for 25. I just make the call, and the hijack folds. Heads up to the turn, which comes the 3 of clubs. My opponent does not slow down and bets 50. They have about $100 behind, and I debate between calling and raising. Against a specific opponent who I know is capable of 3-barreling as a bluff, I decided to just call and let them hang themselves. We're going to the river, hoping for a clean run out. How about the 8 of spades to give me a boat and the second nuts, huh? I have to pinch myself. As I see the cutoff slide the rest of their chips in the middle, I snap call. I'm obviously good and take down a very nice pot.
Last hand for me, guys.
It's getting late. It's 2 a.m. on a school night. Time to wrap up the session. Let's play one last 5-2 bomb pot. 5 of us see a flop of 8-8-4 on top, king 10-8 on bottom. I'm on the button with king queen 10-8-3. I flop trip 8s on top and top 2 pair on bottom. Action checks to the cutoff, who bets 25. I decide to just call for now, and under the gun makes the call as well. We're going 3 ways to the turn, and it comes a king on top and a king on bottom. Oh my fucking god. I turn 8s over kings on top and kings over 10s on bottom. All the kings and all the 8s are accounted for. I've got a 10 in my hand, so quad 10s is not possible. Bruh, I just turned nut. And if that wasn't good enough, the cutoff bets again for 100. I think my only option to getting more value is to just call. I can hardly believe it, but under the gun makes the call as well. We're going to the river, and it comes the case 10 on top and a brick 3 on bottom. Under the gun checks, and this time the cutoff slows down and checks. I know I have a scoop in my hands. I know the cutoff cannot have a very strong hand, but one strong enough that they bet twice. As far as under the gun is concerned, I'm not sure what they called turn with. I'm going to try and extract one last bit of value. I bet 175. Under the gun folds, but I do get the call from the cutoff. I show my hand, and my opponent said they had pocket 4s for a flop boat on top. I can see how that was a hard fold to make with a lot of blockers to bigger boats out on the board. And just like a couple of sessions ago, I scoop a bomb pot after announcing my last hand. This concludes this video. I was in for 300, out for 965, booking a total profit of 665. This was a super fun session with lots of action, and it's always extra fun when you book a nice win. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching. Good luck at the tables, and I'll catch you in the next one.